Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to take a look at another brand new addition to this game, the Aston Martin DBS, which is finally in this game. So as with all of the other cars in this series, it is recycled from previous games, and generally I don't do videos looking at cars that are re-added, but this is probably one of, if not my favourite car ever made. I think it's the most beautiful car ever made, certainly. So definitely wanted to come in here and make a video on it, despite it being in previous titles. Rather irritatingly though, to unlock this car, which isn't brand new to the game, you have to do 40 points in the playlist, not just the usual 20, and unfortunately it's going to be the same every week. There are 2 returning cars each week, but that means you have to get 40 points in the playlist to unlock the new vehicle. So this week I also got the 12C, next week there'll be the Koenigsegg CCX and the Lykan Hypersport, in winter there'll be the Huayra and the 280 SL, and in spring there'll be the GTA Spano and the Fiat Dino. So all of these are new to this game, but were in Horizon 4. So slightly a pain that we're going to have to get 40 points to win the second car each week. But anyway, as you can see in summer season, I've done the trial, the 3 event labs, 2 of the speed traps, a couple of championships, photo challenge, and all 4 of the rivals things, which I tend to do at the beginning of the series. So yeah, you do have to do most of the playlist to get the car, which is a bit of a pain. One thing that's great having this car in Horizon 5 is it's no longer under James Bond, so when you're looking for it in your garage you don't keep going to the wrong manufacturer to start with. The DBS probably objectively isn't actually a particularly good car compared to some of its rivals, but just look at it. It's so much more elegant than the new shouty look at me Aston Martins of today. Not that those are bad looking cars, I do quite like the DB11 for example. I just think that this one is so much more refined and beautiful in design to those. Yes, its engine is sort of 2 Mondeo engines put together, but it did end up making this stunning 5.9 litre V12, despite it actually saying 6 litre on the engine, which it isn't quite. Here in Forza though, that engine did manage to propel the car, completely stock with no tuning at all, to an impressive 203 miles per hour on the downhill section of the motorway, which for a car from 2008 isn't bad at all. And in a much tuned version, it spawned one of the best sounding race engines ever in the Aston Martin DBR9. It certainly has a lot more character than the turbocharged unit in the DB11 that kind of replaced it, and the DBS as well that eventually came of the DB11. This being naturally aspirated though, it only produces 510 horsepower, whilst the DB11 has over 600, but in what situation was more than 500 ever really necessary in a GT car? And although the DBS isn't exactly a light car, it was never really supposed to be, it's a GT, not a sports car, it is about 200 kilos lighter than the new DB11. The newer cars though are probably better in almost every way, but I will always prefer this one. Even with its stupidly named emotional control unit instead of a traditional key, a rev counter that goes the wrong way, and the silly power, beauty and soul message that you get when you start the engine, this is still the Aston Martin that I would choose over any other. Not being as high performing as the newer Astons though also means it's in the middle of A-class here in Forza Horizon 5 at 746 PI, so it actually has potential for being useful in A-class races. So we know the DB11 and newer supercars are going to be a lot faster than the DBS, but what happens if we drag race it against a couple of V12 Vantages and the DBX?
Jesus Christ. I'm gaining on Corey.
I'm gaining on the DBX.
Oh, you're gonna pass me!
Who's gonna
As
break
far as
later? Oh,
DBS
fuck.
isn't
Oh,
in
fuck,
purple.
fuck.
Jesus Christ.
So I'm going to go very quickly through the customization and upgrade options, because it is essentially the same as it was in previous games. There is quite a large selection of colours, although I'm not sure why you'd want a bright red, bright yellow, or bright colours on your Aston. The green is rather nice, but I don't think I've ever actually seen one in green. And then there's kind of your usual blacks and greys and silvers, including, I believe this is called Quantum Silver, which I never quite understood because this car came out long before the Quantum of Solace film that it was in. So maybe this was only available after that? Anyway, it featured in not one, but 2 James Bond films, of course, this DBS. But anyway, there are a huge selection of colours. There's the slightly silvery colour it's got on now, but I am going to go for the more traditional, darker Quantum Silver. So, yes, just like in Horizon 4, there aren't many options in upgrades and customization. There is Forza Aero, which is pretty impressive on this. Look how big the front splitter is. That adds like another DBS to the front in length. That is just ridiculous. But it does come with that horrendous tow hook, so let's not do that. And, yeah, I can't believe I just did that. Right, let's not do that ever again. It comes with 4 possible V12 engine swaps. There's a racing V12, a 7.7 litre V12, a 6.5 and a 7 litre. If you want to put a different V12 in it for some reason, maybe you dislike Ford Mondeo engines. You can, of course, all-wheel drive swap it, but why would you? And you can supercharge it, which actually sounds incredible. But I'm not going to do that. Yeah, everything else is pretty much as you'd expect. I think track width, I'm pretty sure, wasn't available in Horizon 4, so you could potentially fill the arches a bit better on here. But other than that, it's all going to be as you would expect. You can upgrade some drivetrain options, platform and handling, and some engine parts. So, as I said earlier, it has potential for being useful in A-Class, so after taking a quick look at the customization and upgrade options, I downloaded this Logic J tune, which had been recommended to me for A-Class online racing, painted the car in a more suitable colour for racing, British Racing Green, and then headed into some Horizon Open. I only ended up getting into the final race of a Horizon Open session at the Reservorio Sprint, so I used that as a sort of practice run, and it went pretty well. The tune felt really nice on this car, and I ended up with a 3rd place finish. So then I went on to a full adventure, starting at the Plaza Circuit, where I got off to a good start for the first few corners, but as soon as we came out of Ghost Mode, I was promptly and violently put in a wall by a Ferrari, as you often are in online on Horizon, and then a tank pool decided to join in on killing the Aston, which is never great because they're huge and they can put you in walls quite effectively. I was then chasing down that Ferrari that had ruined the start of my race, and a BMW, for most of the remainder of the race. I did eventually pass the BMW, but then I scraped a wall, got a slowdown penalty, and conceded that position back to them again. I somehow though managed to get a lovely switch back out on the final corner, and retake the BMW, giving me a 4th place finish. So 3rd and 4th so far, not too bad. For the second race of the adventure, we headed to the Reservorio Sprint again, this time surprisingly with a full 12-car grid. Can't remember the last time I saw that on Horizon 5. I think maybe people are giving up on Forza Motorsport increasingly at this point. I was hoping that this race would go well, as I had already raced this route in this car in that practice run beforehand, and it was off to a great start along the first high-speed section down into Mulahay. Here though, the tank pool quickly put an end to that, and ruined my race entirely, crashing me into walls, blocking me, and doing the same to a Lotus as well that was trying to get past. We both sort of did, and then came together and I nearly put him out of a checkpoint, and yeah, it all didn't go very well. I then kind of tried a bit too hard to catch up to the rest of the field, I think, which meant I kept hitting walls, and then the game would also give me a slowdown penalty, as if the wall hadn't slowed me down enough already. Anyway, the rest of that race was a bit of a waste of time then. The final race of the session took us to the Horizon Mexico circuit, where again that tank pool was causing havoc at the beginning, seemingly to purposely put every car they could into a wall, for some reason. This time though I managed to clear that humongous crashy thing, but still had a lot of places to make up, which I somehow did, the Aston feeling great mostly around this circuit, ending up in 3rd by the end of the race, with only 2 Skylines finishing ahead of me, so I kind of count that as a victory in itself, really. So the Aston was actually pretty good in A-Class Open, so I will potentially at some point put that tune back on. But another thing I wanted to do is, with the DBS, I don't actually like these standard wheels that it comes with all that much. There was a pretty nice option wheel that it came with, that was sort of diamond cut two-tone, with less spokes than this, that I think looks a little bit more sporty and a little bit more modern. So I have gone in and found the wheels that are closest to that in-game, which are these ones, whatever they are. So I'm going to apply those to the car, which I think actually looks pretty good. So let's do that and bring the track widths out a bit to kind of make it sit a little bit nicer and make a lovely car for driving, because in the end it's a GT car and that's kind of what it's for. So I'm then going to paint Group 2 as black to give it that sort of diamond cut finish, and I think that looks pretty good. There's a little bit more black to it than on the real ones. I think the real ones have a sort of bigger front surface area in the silver, but I think it makes it just look that bit more sporty and that bit more modern, so I'm actually quite pleased with how that's come out. I'm not sure if I'll keep the green or not, but for now I'm liking that colour. And that is going to do it for a very first look at the Aston Martin DBS here in Forza Horizon 5. Yes, this update as a whole is pretty disappointing because they are all recycled cars, but they are all things that it is great to see back in this game, particularly this DBS for me as probably my favourite car, pretty much, at least visually. I absolutely love this thing. I think it's beautiful. So yeah, I'm super, super happy that this has returned. It drives pretty nicely stock, surprisingly, but I did find it needed that bit of extra power when we're racing it in open. It did feel quite a lot better to drive in that situation. A little bit disappointed how badly it did in the drag race against the DBX and some of the other Astons. But yeah, overall pretty good with the tune in A-Class, and I'm loving how it looks with these wheels on it, in this sort of, well, grand touring spec, I suppose. But that is going to do it for a very first look at this car. I'm going to be driving it so much more in this state and with its A-Class tune, so hopefully I can get hold of another one in the auction house at some point. But for now, that is going to be all taking a look at the returning Aston Martin DBS, which I'm of course super happy to see in here. So thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next video very soon.